Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So 13 years since the last increase in the minimum wage. Think about that for a second. We have had 2 presidents in a row and only 3 presidents in the history of the minimum wage to not increase that minimum wage. It was 8 years during the Reagan administration, 8 years during Obama, and 4 years during Trump. This totally unacceptable. And the reality is, you stop and you think about the kind of wage theft that this is. I mean, we've got a situation where we've got people shooting themselves into space to get away from paying the minimum wage. It's crazy. And here to share some thoughts on just how bad things are for working people, I've asked Erica Payne to come talk with us. Erica is the founder of Patriotic Millionaires. You can check out their website at patrioticmillionaires.org. Erica, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here.
So 13 years, they told us, now this is where they told us, if we raise the minimum wage, Erica, inflation is going to go through the roof. And yet inflation went through the roof, and we still haven't raised the minimum wage because explain that to me, because I'm struggling.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. It's not even the 13 years. It goes back further than that. I mean, in 1968, the minimum wage was at its peak. And if it had been adjusted for inflation over just the last time since then, it would be around $14-15 an hour. And if it had been adjusted for productivity and inflation, it would be $22 an hour, $23 an hour. And so, I mean, what we basically, in the process of breaking the social compact, these wealthy CEOs have decided that the best way to, get what they need in the world is to make sure that regular working people don't get what they need. And it's a terrible way to run a country. It's a terrible way to run a business. And it's basically broken the connection that we all had between ourselves.
Yeah. Now, Dean Baker over at the Center for Economic Policy and Research, he says that it had kept up with just productivity, minimum wage would be about $26 an hour. So I keep going, where's that extra $18 an hour? Where'd that money go?
It's going right in the pockets of the CEOs, the lobbyists who work for them, and a small number of investors who control most of the market.
So when I say that we have created the largest billionaire class in the history of civilization off the back of poor and low-wage workers, I would not be wrong, would I?
You would be 100% right. And we've been doing it for a really long time. And unless there's a serious intervention from working people on both sides of the political aisle, I really worry that we're not going to address it. The thing that's so dumb about it, Rick, too, is that we could build exactly the kind of country that basically all of us want to live in if we would just connect the engine of American prosperity business to the engine of prosperity for each and every single American family. And the easiest way to do that is to raise the federal wage floor. So people are required to have their employees take part in the profits of the company, and the employees are what get them the profits in the first place. I mean, this is kind of basic.
It is kind of basic.
It's so sad that we're arguing about stuff this basic.
It is basic, but what you end up getting into, and this is where it's amazing to me how well and how easy it is for the wealth class to divide the working class. Jay Gould is the one who's given credit for saying, I could easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. Whether he said it or not, for me, is immaterial. It's the statement that matters, because I look at this as being one of those issues. Someone making, $15 an hour goes, oh, how can you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? I only make $15 an hour, without thinking that, gee, maybe your wages might go up a little bit too.
No, it's not that they'll go up a little bit. I mean, here's the thing, Rick. This is the thing that I think is freaking me out about the entire exercise. Slightly less than 50% of people in America work in low wage jobs. So all of those people are affected by the minimum wage. If you raise the minimum wage by, up to where it ought to be $15 an hour, that guy making 15 now is going to be making 25. It's not going to be a small increase. You raise that federal wage floor, value working people the way this country should value working people, and you're going to start to see people up and up the chain making more money. And eventually those billionaires are going to have to admit that this is a better business model for everybody, for the economy in general. And they're going to have to, maybe they can't afford a rocket.
Or a second rocket. Maybe they can have one.
Or a second rocket.
Maybe they can have one rocket. Maybe,
or a baby yacht to push along your big yacht.
Maybe an 80-foot rocket instead of a 100-foot.
Maybe. But no, I mean, here's the thing. I think one of the points of the Patriotic Millionaires, as our chairman always says, he's like, look, I'm not any more altruistic than the next guy. I'm just greedy for a different kind of country. And our members happen to believe they're all capitalists. You know, they happen to believe that the best way to build a sustainable society, a sustainable economy in which they can make a lot of money, is to make sure that working people in America are making a whole bunch of money too.
Yeah, no, I saw a statistic earlier today that said 1 in 3 workers in this country are earning less than $15 an hour. So a raise in the minimum wage, and there is the Raise the Wage Act that would raise the minimum wage up to $15 an hour by 2025, and that can't get through, and it's not going to, or at least I don't think it is. Maybe you'll correct me here in a second.
But let me tell you why it's not going to get through, and I think that this is really important for people to understand. The working class is being screwed by both political parties. I mean, is one worse than the other? Yes. But neither one of them is doing what needs to be done. There are 8 Democrats right now who refuse to support the idea that a working person who works full time should make around 30 grand a year, $15 an hour. They refuse to support that idea. They even think that people who are in the service industry, who is mostly us ladies and a whole bunch of people of color, that we should make $2 an hour, hoping that on the off chance a happy customer is going to slip us some cash in the form of a tip. That's what the Democratic Party, 8 of its members, believe in. And so, you know, they're joining with all of their Republican colleagues. So how committed is the Democratic Party in general to working people? I'd say they've got a big problem.
Yeah. So who are our eight Republican-like Democrats? I mean, look, you know, at the end of the day, my premise has always been, right now, it appears that Republicans hate working people. The Democrats aren't always my best friend either, but at this moment, they're my only hope, because Republicans have shown me time and time again that they're not going to help. They've attacked my right to organize. They've attacked my health care. They've attacked my retirement. They've attacked social. You know, go down the list of everything they want to take away. They want to repeal the 20th century and move me back to the Lochner era, where if I'm hungry enough, desperate enough, and you know that I'll work for poverty wages in desperate conditions, that's my liberty. That's my right. They give me no hope. Democrats at least try and talk like maybe I've got hope. How can we push people to go, hey, you 8, get in line? Who are these?
And here's the thing. I mean, this is one of the great victories of the moment. As bad as everything feels right now, this fight for 15 didn't start but about 8 years ago. And political change takes a long time. President Biden ran on and won on a $15 minimum wage. He could not have been more straightforward about what he wanted to accomplish, that his Democratic colleagues are holding him up. So we've got a suggestion for President Biden. You need to lead by example. These folks who are working for the federal government and for people who contract the federal government live the values you want to see in the world. We challenge President Biden to raise the pay of federal contract workers to $20 an hour and start to make up that gap that started in the 70s and 80s between what people are contributing and what they're making. We've got a gap. We need to fill that gap, and President Biden can lead by example. We really urge him to do that. And then to demand those 8 Democrats get in the room and work out a deal.
Yeah, didn't he at the beginning of his presidency raise it up to 15?
He did 100%. And it was a great bright spot. You know, he led by example at that point, and we've got inflation admittedly completely out of control. Those people working need an inflation bump.
No, I'm right there with you. No, I'm right there with you. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with Erica Payne. She's the founder of the Patriotic Millionaires. Patrioticmillionaires.org is their website if you want to take a look at the work that they do. They've got a fantastic book, Tax the Rich. I highly suggest taking a look at that. We'll get links out on social media on how you can take a look at that. Now, you know, this again, I want to go back to the 8, the heavy 8 there. Do we know?
Let's name them and shame them.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Who are they?
Maggie Hassan and Jean Shaheen, senators from New Hampshire, where the poorest county in New Hampshire, if you want to lead any kind of a stable life, requires $15 an hour. If you have a kid, it requires $25. That's in their poorest county in New Hampshire. Those 2 ladies, those 2 women refuse to get on this bill. John Tester from Montana, Chris Coons and Tom Carper from Delaware, both of whom are very close to President Biden. So that leads me to believe that the White House hadn't leaned on them quite as hard as they should have. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, always going to be a complete pain in the neck, and Angus King from Maine. Okay. I will say that Joe Manchin from West Virginia is senator of the poorest state, and he seems to believe that $11 is enough for his folks. I think that is ridiculous. West Virginia deserve better.
I'm with you,
but Joe Manchin wants to give them.
Is this a moment where we maybe start talking about something different than a minimum wage, perhaps? You know, I like the idea of a prevailing wage. I look at my construction friends who have gone to a prevailing wage system to where maybe we start making people report their wages. We make these employers start reporting it. We start mandating a prevailing wage. We're saying this is what the minimum for this industry and this sector is going to be. And instead of, across the board blankets, where we then take that talking point, well, a minimum wage in New York City is different than a minimum wage in Dubuque. And that's true. Cost of livings are different. Is that something you might be interested in?
So here's the thing, Rick. I think that there are any number of ways to hit this wage issue. Definitely. In other countries, they do it. They have they operate in, chunks of industries. They negotiate in that industry. What we basically want to see is working people in America have a significant amount of additional power and money. Okay. That's what we're looking for. Working people with more power and more money. The cleanest, easiest way to accomplish that for probably about 30 to 40% of our workforce just off the bat.
Here it comes.
Is to raise the prevailing federal wage.
Okay. I thought you were going to go the union route, because me as a union guy, that's what I want to. I think every worker should be in a union. I think you should sit down with the employer, and I want companies to be wildly profitable so that I can,
Rick,
I can demand the most.
That's definitely, listen, the fact that the unions have been attacked for so many years is why working people are in the place that they're in right now too, because they lost that collective power. What I'd like to see is a $15 federal minimum wage. I'd actually like to see $18 to $20 federal minimum wage, but we'll get to that. And every person be part of a collective bargaining agreement. I mean, the working people of the United States need to band together. They can be a union in themselves. They just have to decide that they want to take power away from the people who have been taking it from them for so many decades.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, I've been very fortunate in my work life. I've always been a member of a union. I've always felt empowered in my workplace to demand better wages, better hours, better working conditions, to demand more from my employer. And I want everyone to feel that they have the ability to do that and demand a better standard of living. But the sad reality is over the last 40 years, we've been trained almost like Pavlovian dogs that anytime we talk about wages, we talk about increase in asking for a raise, we almost start getting jittery and people start foaming at the mouth. And I'm like, now is the time where we should be demanding. Look, we got a guy, they got two guys shooting rockets into space to see whose rocket's bigger or more phallic. Because they've figured out how to get more tax dollars by not paying our taxes, by figuring out the latest great crime by not paying taxes. And you go, when do we wake up from this?
Well, listen, about 70% of Americans think the economy is rigged against them.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, so they're in on the scam. The problem is that they're divided enough amongst themselves that they can't seem to pull their power together to topple over the elite class that is sucking all the money out of them. Okay. And taking the lifeblood out of them at the same time. And so, I mean, what we just want to say, it's also a great economic idea. I mean, what does a bar owner care more about? How much he's paying one bartender behind the bar, or how much every single one of his customers has in their pocket. The end. I'd rather have 30 customers making $15 an hour with that beer money in their pocket on a Friday night and pay my bartender $15 with tips on top. That's a net positive for me. People going out having a great time because they got a little money in their pocket. People want to participate in the economy. They want to participate in life. They want to go out to Chuck E. Cheese with their kids. Get some dollars in those pockets and get those businesses running.
Yeah, here's a novel concept. Disposable income. Something we haven't thought about in a long time.
Ever thought about because nobody has any more to dispose of except for these people who are disposing it into a rocket. And the thing is, in the process, it's destroying our country. And I'm getting really sick of it because it's just dumb. I mean, this is to the point where there's every single bit of data, because here's the thing. States have been trying this. Cities have been trying this. Counties have been trying this. We have experimented in the great lab that is the American experiment. We have experimented with paying people more. And guess what? It turns out great. Academic study after academic study has shown that if you put two places right next door to each other, one paying a livable wage, one not, businesses do better in the place with the livable wage. That's it. That's why minimum wage, raising the minimum wage, is the single most popular issue in America today. In the last 20 years, 100% of ballot initiatives raising the minimum wage have passed, including in conservative states like Alabama. Tom Cotton won his reelection campaign the same year a minimum wage ballot initiative to $12 an hour passed. And now that jerk has a bill on the floor, a federal wage that'll raise it to $11 4 years from now. So he basically wants to give the people of Alabama a pay cut with the bill that he's pushing. They've already told him what they want.
Yeah, it's not surprising. And at the end of this, what is kind of shocking is our friends, especially on the Republican side, lots of outrage, lots of hate. In fact, we just saw the weekend rally that you saw in Florida, the Turning Points USA, lots of lights and flash and lots of hate and division. Not much on how to make people's lives better. And with all of this division, hate the guy over there because he's left, hate that Democrat, hate your neighbor. What they figured out is if they can keep us pitted against each other, eating each other, they don't have to talk about the tough stuff. Like, how are we going to make your lives better? How are we going to improve your communities? How are we going to get your kids better education? How are we going to get your families better health care? How are we going to improve your standards of living? Because what we know is conservative states have, much more dangerous workplaces, lower life expectancies, higher infant mortality rates. You can go down the list of the negatives that you see in these conservative states that have lower wages and all of this stuff. And yet we're still eating each other.
Well, I mean, it's so deep, Rick. I mean, these conservative states, we did a visit to West Virginia at the end of last year, because I don't know why people are surprised that guy walked away from this negotiation. But at the end of last year, I told my staff that guy is not passing anything. And so I just wanted to go talk to some people in West Virginia. Like, what do you think of this cat? Right. And so I go to West Virginia with some of our members and a bunch of our staff people. We literally stood in the parking lot of Dollar General and stopped people coming out of Dollar General and asked them about what they think about the tax code, what they know about the tax code, and then what they thought about Joe Manchin and what they thought about work and stuff and what they thought about how the economy is working. 100% of people we talk to know that they are getting a raw deal. They know that people need to make more money. They know that the billionaire class hadn't paid a tax worth a damn in decades, and Joe Manchin's part of that. We saw the same thing in Kentucky. But I think at some point, Rick, you get so tired and so hopeless, you just don't want to hear another person spouting endless promises.
Yep. And
so that's what the Democrats have done. They dragged themselves over the finish line, selling higher taxes on rich people and a $15 minimum wage, and they failed. And so what they need to do now is pick progress out of this, and Biden needs to lead by example and set that federal wage for at least for people who work for this country that we love. Those people need to make $20 an hour. I'll see you 15. I raise you 20, Tom Cotton. You want to give the people in Alabama a pay cut.
And how do we make that happen? How do we get the president's ear? What's the final word? How do we get that little piece moving to get the rest of the ball going?
So go to the Patriotic Millionaires website, and by tomorrow morning I will have some way for you. We have it. We have the number, Rick. I can't remember the number. I'm so sorry. We will find the number.
We'll get it out on social media here soon.
Okay, good. Thank you. Put it on Twitter. Raise the wage, Joe Biden. $20.
There you go. We'll make sure that we get that out, and folks will be able to participate. But really good stuff, Erica. I appreciate you taking a little time for us. The work you guys do over at Patriotic Millionaires is so important, and we need more of it. We need more of what you're doing, so keep it up, and I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
Rick, thank you so much. It was great being here with you.
Thanks so much. Our good friend Erica Payne. She's the founder of Patriotic Millionaires. Make sure you check out their website, patrioticmillionaires.org. Again, we'll get links out on social media. Love to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. What are your thoughts? Should we raise the minimum wage? Or do you think it's just fine right where it is? Starvation, poverty, wages? Back after this.
listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. That website is over at actionnetwork.org. Letter to President Biden to tell him to deliver now for working people. Just one of the, we'll get it out on social media to let people know. You know, the red states, you got Montana, Arkansas, Alaska, Nebraska, South Dakota, ones that they're going after. Colorado, Illinois, Oregon, Washington, blue states, swing states of Florida, Ohio, Arizona, Nevada. So if you're in those areas, by all means, reach out to your senators. Say, hey, you know, we need some movement. And look, Pennsylvania hasn't raised its minimum wage since 2006. It's still $7.15 on the books here in Pennsylvania, but because the federal minimum wage is $7.25, got that whole 10-cent raise. Oh boy. And the thing is, I don't know how anyone exists on $7.25. In fact, as I said, there is nowhere in this country that you can rent an apartment for $7.25 an hour and 40-hour work week. There's just nowhere now. After this, coming out of the pandemic, there is literally nowhere. Before the pandemic, there was nowhere to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. I think it was like in 7% of the counties across the U.S., you could rent like a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment. You could maybe find something. Now, nothing. And this again is one of those moments where inflation keeps going up and the minimum wage has just been completely eaten away. And that happened back during the Reagan years. Those 8 years, the minimum wage just got decimated. And then Republicans were successful in holding off the Democrats from doing anything during the Obama term because, hey, they just raised it a paltry amount at the end of the Bush term. And the last time it raised was in 2009 when Obama took office, and they couldn't get back to getting it done again. And those 8 years were gone. The 4 years during Trump, we've had 13 years of people who get up every day and work for a poverty starvation wage. And you go, but no, Rick, you just got to increase your skills. A third of workers in this country make less than $15 an hour. A third. That is a structural problem. That is a structural problem of workers not having enough power. But, and this is what I love. I love the economists' arguments. But, if you raise the wage, they'll lose jobs. Maybe, but the reality is that hasn't borne out. In the places where minimum wages have gone up, jobs have actually gone up a little bit because, you know what? People had more money. There's more money circulating in the economy because, as Erica pointed out, would you rather have more customers who have more disposable income in your establishments? Yes. And I think back to an economist I had on the program, probably 15 years ago. He said, look, if you give a rich person the choice between a $20,000 tax break and 20,000 people coming into his establishment with money, he'd better take the 20,000 people coming in with money because that's how jobs are created. Because that's a guy wanting to meet the demand. That's how business works. If you give him the 20 grand, he's just going on vacation. And that, my friends, is what our billionaire class has done. They've been on vacation for a long time. You want to talk about welfare queens and kings? There they are, living off the backs of working people. Sad, sad stuff.